Franklin, and I'm the Director of Coaching for the state of Indiana. So my job is to teach our coaches how to become better coaches so they can develop your players. But I'm also overseeing the young man now that's, I say young man because everyone in our office is like 60 or older. So I've got a friend named Todd Sheely, and if he's running around here, I'll introduce him to you. But Todd's done a great job putting this whole thing together. But I oversee and mentor Todd and help him with that. So when he mentioned we should do some special things here while all the players are here, I said, what about college talk? I thought it was a great idea. So what I would like to do is to let you know that my journey started off coaching as a 22-year-old at a school with about 650 kids up in northern Wisconsin. So I was a cheesehead for about 14 years. I ended up coaching at Indiana University, and the last 16 years of my college career I was at a school called IUPUI, Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. Anybody heard of it? All right, don't call it up ooey pooey or this guy down here will get a little upset. So I say that because everyone in this room can play college soccer. Every single one of you. It just depends on what level suits your academic needs and then your athletic needs, in that order. All right? So, Riley Dupret, did I say it right?
Yes.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Riley Dupret. I'm the head coach at Howard Macon University. We are a D2 program located in Columbus, Ohio. A little bit better.
There we go. Abby Markey here. Abby's coached and now works for the NCAA.
Thanks. So Abby Markey, I've actually been at the NCAA for 13 years. So I clearly started when I was like 15 or 16 years old. But people, when they hear that you work at the NCAA, they think you do one of two things. You either work the college basketball tournament, or you're the person that has imposed penalties on their favorite school, and that's why the team's not performing, because the NCAA did that, right? We are set up where we have, obviously, the 3 divisions. You'll hear more about that here momentarily. I work in Division I, and then specifically within Division I, I do compliance, so that's rules. I like to say we are the front-end education side, not the back-end enforcement side that I just talked about. So I have nothing whatsoever to do with your favorite teams getting in trouble. I actually work in men's basketball. I don't put the tournament on, but I work with a committee that oversees men's basketball, and then I also work in soccer. So I work with the United Coaches, the United Soccer Coaches Association, which I assume all of the individuals up here are a part of, but working with them to educate at all 3 divisions. Steve's going to put me on the spot here momentarily, asking me information about D2 and D3, and I will fumble my way through that. But happy to answer anything that I can from an NCAA perspective.
Cool. Thanks. Sean Mahoney here. He's with the University of Indianapolis on the men's side, Division II, nationally ranked, and last year played in the Final Four. Okay, so give us a shout.
So, Sean Mahoney, University of Indianapolis. I'm the associate head coach there. Been there for 5 years. Prior to that, I was a Division III head coach for 11. I don't think we have a Division III coach on the panel, so I'd be able to answer some of those questions as well. If you have questions about the Division III level, which in our sport is the biggest of the 3. So, University of Indianapolis, private school, 5,500 students undergrad and about 2,000 graduate students, to give you an idea of our size. So,
Can you do me a favor? I've been dying to do this. Can you give this man a standing ovation? This is Brian Barnett. Please give him a standing ovation. He didn't win a game this spring. Please stand up. He coaches at the school I last coached at, so I always wanted to take care of my buddy. Brian Barnett is our Division I. Are you making faces at me?
Absolutely not.
The Division I school here in Indianapolis called IUPUI, not Ooey Pooey.
Yeah, the only time Ooey Pooey made sense when I was holding my, I don't know, 6-month-old son and he had a blowout. I was wearing an IUPUI t-shirt, so that's about the only time that's made sense in my brain. And I didn't say anything like that. But yeah, Brian Barnett, I've been at IUPUI as the head coach since August of 2016, and as Coach Franklin let you know, we haven't won a tremendous amount of games since I've been there, but we have done a great job of trying to drive program culture forward and do some pretty impressive stuff off the field, in my opinion. As an example, we were the top 5 GPA in the country last year as a team, and we also do quite a bit of community service, working in the Indianapolis community, in particular with IPS schools, and trying to serve as mentors for them and educate them on reading and what that means to have a lifelong commitment to reading and learning. And I think one of the things that I want to make clear is, like, we keep talking about levels, right, while we're up here, and like how somehow, shape or form, Division I is like better than Division II, and like I actually think that's quite the opposite. It couldn't be less true. You know, as Sean mentioned, his team went to the Final Four last year, right? They've won a lot of games since he's been there, and if my team played his team, Division I, Division II, like, I don't know who'd win. You know, so it'd be a really, really competitive match, or they might roll us. That's a real thing. And I think it's more important to look at it through the lens of, like, what do you want out of your college experience as a student, as an athlete, and as a person? And then you need to find the place, regardless of if it's 1, 2, 3, NAI, junior college, or whatever it is, you need to find that place that aligns with those goals, and that's where you're going to have the most fulfilled college experience, as opposed to looking at it as, like, you know, Division I or II or III or something like that. Like, it's not how it works. So that's all I got.
I just kidded him about no wins this spring. You know how many coaches struggled this spring? Probably every coach at the collegiate level, because this was an unprecedented year. Okay? He needs to brag a little bit more about what they do in the community service, as well as the academics and everything like that. I'm proud as hell of what this guy is doing. So, better? Are we okay now?
There was never an issue. Never an issue.
Adam Kleeman from Indiana State on the women's side, Division I school, the Sycamores out there on the other side of Indiana. You want to say anything?
No, I just didn't know if I should be bracing for any kind of impact.
No.
I wasn't sure if there was any more fastballs coming or anything.
Nope.
No, but yeah, Adam Kleeman, Indiana State women's soccer, just finished second season down there in Terre Haute, so about an hour and a half southwest of here on your way to St. Louis. We were fortunate. The girls had a really great season. We had the best season in program history this year. We finished second in the league. So young team. We got a lot of girls coming back. Fortunately, they're successful off the field as well. They had a 3.85 GPA this spring semester. I couldn't put 2 semesters of that combined in college and add it up to a 3.85. So, you know, the fact that they're doing that as a team, there's a lot of successful girls.
But you're coaching them?
There's an academic department.
Okay.
Yeah. We have academic specialty services. But no, so very excited about a lot of things going on down there. We've been able to kind of turn the program around here, get it going in the right direction, so we're excited about the future, and happy to be a part of this and answer any and all questions that come about.
Thank you. Could we get a little applause for all the people up here? I do a lot of grassroots instruction, so I told everybody I wouldn't tell a stupid coach joke or a dad joke, but I will. How do you burn down a soccer stadium? How? You throw in a soccer match. See, there are a couple people laughing. But I do have some interesting things for you. How many of you knew that the NCAA Division I and Division schools offer $2.7 billion in athletic scholarships to more than 150,000 student athletes each year? But that only makes up 2% of the cost of a college-bound student athlete. So if you think that you're going to get a free ride going to college solely on athletic monies, sorry. It's going to take academics. It's going to take what you offer in the community. It's going to take what makes you special to that university. So keep doing what you're doing, kicking the soccer ball, but I just want to kind of throw that out there. Abby, here comes the softball question to you. There is the NAIA out there. There is the National JUCO. There is the National Christian College. There is the National Small College. Am I missing any? And then there is the NCAA, Division 1, 2, and 3. In a very basic approach, could you tell us about Division 1, Division 2, Division 3? We know Division 3 doesn't offer athletic money, but...
Yeah, so Division I, you're thinking your larger schools, just to name a few around here, Ohio State, Purdue, Indiana. They're going to have larger athletic budgets. And the focus is on the student-athlete experience, and academics is a part of that, but I would say they get more time with their student-athletes for their sport. Division II, you're going a little bit smaller in terms of student body size. Sean talked about UND and the size of that institution. More partial scholarships at that level. And then Division III is the largest part of our NCAA, our association, meaning there are more schools that are Division III than Division II or Division I, but they do not give athletics money, and the focus there truly is on academics. So they have even less time with their student athletes engaged in the sport than D2 or D1.
Thank you. I've got a couple softball questions that I'm going to throw at the crew up here, and then we're going to walk around and open it up for at least half of this for questions from all of you too. So if you have a good question, start thinking about it. Remember to throw your hand up real quick.
Can I say one thing real quick? Sorry, I'm already going to take him off his script. When I say that the Division I has the most money, he shouldn't be surprised by this. I do want to say we're talking about soccer here, and it is really hard to get a full ride in the sport of soccer. That's really hard to do, and you know, Adam can speak to this, but soccer is not, you know, when you think about football, basketball, if you are on aid in Division I, you are getting a full ride. Soccer, it is hard to get a full scholarship. So I just want to, you know, do a little bit of level setting there.
Thank you for the level setting.
With expectations, and again, our Division I coaches can speak to that, but, okay.
Adam, how many full scholarships do you have for Division I on the women's side?
14.
Does anybody know how many the men have?
Yeah.
9.9. And that does not mean that every school out there has that full allotment. That's the maximum that you can offer. Brian, do you have full 9.9?
Depends on which denominator you use, Coach. You got to be pretty good at math.
That's why you carry a number 2 pencil around with you usually. There we go.
But that's for the whole team. That's for the whole team. So if you have a roster of 30, 28, whatever, that's for the whole team.
So I'll throw this one out to Brian and Adam. When you're out on the recruiting trail, what characteristics and such do you look at for potential student athletes for your programs?
You know, obviously, the thing that probably starts the process is the athletic side. We get the opportunity to identify potential student athletes on the soccer field, and so for us, we obviously look at things we can't change. In terms of what's your athleticism, you know, what's your response when you lose the ball, what kind of teammate are you when you're subbed off the field, what's your interactions with your teammates on the bench. You know, the things for us that are within the athlete's control are really the things that start the recruiting process for us, because we want to learn how they respond to adversity, and at the same time, you know, even if they're not the most technical or tactical, we can help fix that in our system. The reality of the situation is we're mid-major. We're not going to check the box on everything. We're not going to get the most athletic, the most technical, the most tactical, but we're going to look to see what are the other areas that you can bring, you know, into the equation. And then that just really starts the recruiting process, because for us, You can be the best athlete in the world, but if you're not a good human, we don't want you in our program. We spend more time with the girls than we do our own family. So, you know, when Abby talks about having a roster size of 25 to 30, the culture fit is everything for us. And we have to make sure that you're going to check the boxes, that you're going to take care of, you know, academics and socially. Those boxes have to be checked on top of athletically. So we have to make sure that academically, when they say, how many scholarships do we have? We have 14. So it's a partial scholarship sport, so you can hand out percentages to various different athletes. But obviously, when you hear the term full ride, a lot of times that only happens because we're talking you're packaging 50, potentially upwards 80% academics on top of it, because when your parents tell you to study hard and make sure you take care of your grades in the classroom, that actually has a lot of merit. So your GPA, your test scores, those things go a long way to being able to stack academic and athletic aid. So obviously the recruiting process starts at the field where we get the opportunity to learn about you as an athlete, but the layers are so much deeper in terms of what kind of person are you, how well do you do in the classroom, how much do you excel with your teammates. If we called your college coach or your club coach, what would they say about you? If we called your teammates, what would they say about you? You know, so for us, the recruiting process can maybe be a little bit slower because we go through the process of learning about you and what ticks about you and what boxes you check. But you know, those are some of the things that we look for in the recruiting process.
Brian?
Great. Yeah, I couldn't agree with Adam more that the cumulative component of like the whole person that we're recruiting is massively important to us. So, right, we're looking at your ability as a student, we're looking at your ability as a soccer player, and then we're looking at what you bring to our program culture as a person, and then like, you know, how can you uniquely impact that in your own way, positively, obviously, right? And so there's a lot of different things that we go through over the course of the process, but you know, the first thing we do is we're out at the field and we're identifying players, and I think on the men's side of college soccer in particular, like athleticism and your ability to compete physically is tremendously important. So regardless of the position out on the field, like we're going to make sure that we feel like that's there, or at least it's there at a requisite level. And then moving forward from there, position by position, there's going to be a myriad of different criteria that we use to identify if we feel like that player can do the job for us at a specific position on the field, whether it be the right back or the six, whatever it might be, right? And then we're going to spend an incredible amount of time doing a deep dive into your personal character, and we want to make sure that we are getting, you know, a lights out human being, somebody that's going to be willing to answer the bell every day on that like relentless pursuit to be a great student, a great athlete, and a great person. And if you're not going to do that, then it's not going to be the right situation for you. And asking questions about like, you know, tell me about a time that you faced adversity, or tell me about a time where you've had to have some resiliency in your life, or whatever that is. Asking coaches if you're gritty, you know, and what does that look like on the soccer field? What does that look like off of the soccer field? Ultimately, like a pretty response-able mindset, meaning you're going to get hit with an 0-6 season, and what do? Right? 0-6 season, what do? Are you going to back off and think like, whatever, or are you going to double down and work harder to make the team better and make yourself better?
So when you say gritty and you're looking into their character, if you happen to wear a Liverpool football jersey, you're probably in trouble, aren't you? Yeah. You might want to think about Manchester United. So Riley and Sean, does that change at all for Division II as far as the qualities of athletes that you look for? Is there any real difference? Or is soccer?
No, I don't think there's a real difference. I just think every program has a little slightly different approach. We're a bit, Brian and I just had this discussion last weekend, which is kind of funny, but we're more systematic in our approach to recruiting. We have 4 things that a player has to have, and if they're, let me back up. We have first team or reserve team. Half of our first team roster are international students. If you watch the College Cup, you saw Marshall beat our Hoosiers, and that roster was primarily an international roster. So you're not just competing against all the guys that you're used to competing against at this event for those types of opportunities to play. You're also competing globally because of what the game is. So for us, we have kind of two strategies. One is half of our first team are international guys, so we have an international recruiting strategy that we use. That doesn't really pertain to all of you, but that's what we have. Then on the domestic side, with U.S. kids, we have 4 things you have to have, or we won't even consider it as on the U.S. side. That is, you have to have a 3.5 GPA. And the reason for that is we can stack academic money and scholarship money on top of each other if you have a 3.5 GPA. So with a 3.5 GPA, we know we can give you better value because we have 9 scholarships is fully funded at Division II. We have 9, but you can make 9 stretch a lot further if you've got a young man that has a good GPA. And so a 3.5 GPA or a 24 at ACT or a 12-10 SAT, and we can stack on that. So you got to have one of those things. The second thing you have to have for us is you have to be coachable, and we'll find that out if we watch you and we like what we see on all the things coaches talked about, the talent and all that sort of thing. We'll find out from your coaches what kind of person you are and the character you are, and so there's that. Then you have to have the third thing for us is you have to have something that separates you from the group. It might be you're 6'4". It might be you're left-sided. It might be you're quick. Okay? There has to be something that separates you. It might be that you're super intelligent on the ball. There has to be something that separates you from the group. I tell the guys that play ODP here for me all the time, like, there has to be something that makes you special if you want to play it at a high level. And most guys know what that is, and they have to do this. So we have those, and then our fourth one is positionally we have certain standards that we're by. So for example, we won't recruit a center back that's under 6 foot tall. Okay, and if you're a center back out there and you're 5'5" or 5'4" or whatever, and you're saying that's not fair, well, if you watched the 07 Indiana team just now, we had a guy that scored a hat trick in the first half. He's 6'2". You have to be able to defend that guy. So there's certain standards we have by position. So we're really systematic in what we look for. And then, like Coach said, once we identify a player that we like that has those things, then we go a little deeper in by position. Do they have certain traits in that position and so forth? So you know, the goal for all of us as coaches with scholarship money is to not get anything wrong. And what I mean by that is recruit the wrong player. It happens. Just like you don't want to get the college wrong, we don't want to get that wrong either. But so that's how we're a little bit different, is we're just a little more systematic in how we do it. Part of that is the level, because we know at Division II, there's guys that won't come to us because they're so set on playing Division I, no matter how good we might be. And so that is a little bit of the reason why we take that approach.
So Sean,
go ahead. Sorry.
before I go to Riley, the Division I has an age criteria limit. So could a guy that's maybe 62, maybe a little overweight, got a phenomenal right foot, still get recruited to the University of Indianapolis? I'm asking for a friend.
No, because we're still on the NCAA calendar clock. So if maybe you can, maybe, I don't know if that's your world a little bit, but
I'm wondering where you're going with this.
because
I was asking for a friend.
Because at the NAI level, for example, you can be out of school for a few years and then go to college and play.
Well, I'm
In the
not talking
NCAA
about
world,
25.
in scholarship, you get 5 years to do 4. If you take a gap year, so you graduate from high school and then you take a year in between, your clock starts when you graduate high school. Unfortunately, Coach, I'm going to guess your high school diploma was a little bit, or sorry, for the friend you're asking for, was a little bit earlier than that.
Might have been.
So,
It's a great diploma.
I know you were that old.
Sorry. I was asking for a friend. You're not supposed to say that out loud. Riley, how about in your situation over there in that other state on the east side of Indiana?
I would agree with everything they said. Character is the biggest trait that we look for, obviously. You're on a team with 30 people and there's, 1 to 2 coaches. Some people are lucky enough to have 3. At my program we have 2 coaches, myself and a GA. So a lot of the culture is managed. I obviously lead it, but a lot of it's done within the team. So if you have one bad egg, two bad eggs, it can really kind of steer your team in the other direction. So we really want to make sure that everyone on the team is gets along, has the same mindset, and that, in my opinion, that's your biggest driving force if you're successful or not. If you have a bad mindset, no matter how talented you are, you're not going to be successful. So just speaking on behalf of, I've only been with my team for a year, so a lot of the players are players that I inherited, and I was lucky enough that the previous coach built a really strong team, and the culture was fantastic this year, I think, which led to our success on the field. So yeah, number one thing is definitely character. The next biggest thing, obviously, is style of play. So obviously, everyone has different strengths, and as a player, some people might be 6'4" and can kick the ball really far and run really fast. So your style of play might be a little bit different than someone who's 5'5", super technical, super smart, and likes to keep the ball on the ground. I recruit more. I mean, obviously we like the big, fast, athletic players, but most of those are being snatched up by Division I. Luckily, sometimes we get lucky and get to get a few of those. But the style of play, I recruit more of the technical players who think about the game from a higher level, who like to keep the ball on the ground. So those are typically players that I'm looking for. Again, we come to watch you guys. You guys also want to go watch the team that you could possibly be playing on. Again, if you're the 5'5" player who likes to keep the ball on the ground and play, and you get recruited by, I don't know, whatever team, and then the midfield doesn't touch the ball, it's probably not a school that you want to go play at. So I would highly recommend at some point watching that team, whether a lot of these games are broadcasted somewhere online. You can go on their website, their athletic page, you'll find them there. I know most of the Division I's are on ESPN3 or ESPN Plus, some platform for you to watch the game. That would be my biggest recommendation for you. Don't commit to a school because of the school. You want to make sure that fits you as a player as well. So I think one, character, then obviously style of play.
He had a bit of Mother Nature come throwing at him full force last night, and we had lightning and whatnot. Just so everybody knows, Grand Park has an emergency detection system, has nothing to do with what he gets to call. They do it, but he's the one that has put all this together, as well as the whole tournament. So I just want to put a face with the name and thank Todd.
I want to thank our speakers and then thank Coach Franklin for moderating. I have tried for about 15 minutes to figure out this wall, and I don't want to break it. So I apologize. This has exceeded my expectations. I said, oh, there'll probably be 100 people maybe that'll pop in. I think we're at over 200 people. So again, I apologize. It might get open with about 5 minutes to go in the presentation and the person who's coming to fix it. So
I could probably grab a couple kids. We could get it taken care of.
I'm sure you could. But again, thank you. I appreciate it. And for your teammates that couldn't be here, we are videotaping this, and it will be put out on our YouTube page. And I will also post it on Twitter as well. I'll send it to your state DOCs to get out to you as well. So thank you again. Let's continue to pray for Mother Nature to be kind to us and get us through till around 4:30, 5 o'clock tomorrow. So thank you again. I appreciate it. Thank you.
How many of you think in the recruiting process that these coaches here will call you up and say, hey, I'm going to come watch your game today. I just wanted to let you know, every time they go out and recruit? I will guarantee you they'll probably do that once to let you know they're coming. But there will be other times where they're going to show up unexpectedly, and they're going to show up early. Because just like all of them said, they're looking at the quality of the individual. What are your warm-up habits like? How do you act with your teammates when you don't know that the college coach is there watching you? Because you're going to change your behaviors when you know that Coach Riley's coming to watch you play today. You're going to be telling all your buddies, you're going to be kind of nervous and everything. They want to see you in your natural environment. So keep that in mind. Riley also mentioned getting online and watching games. When I was at IUPUI before Brian, back in the days when you sent, if I say DVDs, you'll all kind of go, yeah. If I said VHS tapes, you'll go, oh my God. I had a kid send me one with a microwave bag of popcorn and say, enjoy my film today, have some popcorn on me. Be unique in how you contact these coaches. A handwritten letter will go a long way than a broadcasted email that you send out to 97 colleges and you say, Coach Barnett can't wait to be a Sycamore Fighting Lion. And Brian's like, well, what are you talking about? We're Jaguars. So, and especially if you get the coach's name wrong, because all you do is do a quick mail search and send it out there. Abby, you're going to be what, a senior in high school? No? Freshman, all right. Going to be a freshman. If you're going to be a freshman, going to be a sophomore, up to junior, senior, should they wait to the last minute to really start working with the NCAA if they want to go that, or do you have some advice, maybe freshman on?
So if you're going into your freshman year, sophomore year in high school, and honestly, if you're going into your junior and you haven't done this yet, a couple things. One, I think it's really important to meet with your high school academic advisor and share with them your interest in playing college sports, because then they should be able to help you with monitoring how many core courses you complete. Core courses are like English, math, science, and then there's a certain number of courses that you have to complete in order to be academically eligible, and that's for divisions 1 and 2. So it's really important that you're working with someone at your high school, parents you can help too, that assess whether or not a course is going to meet a core course requirement. Additionally, you should get on the NCAA Eligibility Center website and register. That begins the process of your transcripts getting evaluated. Again, those will come from the high school to the EC, the Eligibility Center, and they will monitor your fulfillment of those core course requirements as you progress through high school. So 2 things: register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. Secondly, talk to a high school academic advisor about your interest in participating in college sports.
I would encourage you to Google NCAA college-bound student athlete. If you can remember all that, great. If not, NCAA recruits. I had a little bit of a PowerPoint just to kind of show you a couple of the pages, but there is a student athlete guidebook that helps explain all this, and you can go right online, but it gives you everything between the differences between the 3 levels, time commitments, when to get things in, all sorts of different things, and it's a free publication, so I would check that out. So
it also talks about what you can do when in the recruiting process, because there are rules tied to where you are in your high school career. There are rules tied to dates in which they can start emailing and texting you, dates on which they can go and evaluate you, how many times they can evaluate you. There are a lot of rules. There are a lot of rules, and you might want a coach to come watch you, and they might want to come watch you, but it might not be a permissible time for them to watch you. So that college-bound guide, which we update regularly, will detail not just the academic side, but the recruiting rules side. I'll tell you, with the kids that I've coached in club or ODP, you know, sometimes they'll say to me, well, I called Adam. I called Coach Adam when we talked about Indiana State, but Adam isn't allowed to call back because of the recruiting rules. So my response to her might be, hey, you need to try him again, because you can call at any time. They can't call you at any time, as an example. The other thing I want to say is you're hearing from 4 different colleges. There are over 1,200 colleges, D1, D2, D3, that make up the NCAA. Another piece of advice I give to my players is never say no to a school until you're ready to say yes to a school. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My parents were not involved in the recruiting process just because they didn't know. Creighton called me. We've all probably heard of Creighton now. Why? Because they've had a lot of success in basketball. A few years ago, when I was going through the process, they weren't as good at basketball. When they called me, I said, I'm sorry, I've never heard of you, so I'm not going there. Fast forward, I'm from Ohio South. I played at Ball State. My mom went to Ball State. Creighton went to the NCAA tournament 2 or 3 out of the 4 years I was in college. Ball State never went to the NCAA tournament during my collegiate enrollment. So again, you might aspire to play at a different school, right? But you just never know. You just never know. It might be a great relationship with a coach. You might fit really well into the system and style of play. You might get on campus and go, you know what? I didn't think I wanted to go to a school of this size, but I love it here. But you don't even get that chance if you're not open to the possibility of going to that school when they first initiate contact. So just think about that. That's just, again, guidance that I give to my players, because things change. Who you are and the schools that you might be looking at as a freshman or sophomore might be very different than the opportunities that you legitimately have when you're a junior or senior in high school.
Thanks. I got little silly bullet points here. I got a lot of stuff in my head that's probably useless, that takes up space and stuff that's probably important. The Division III's largest school has over 25,000 students. The smallest Division III school has 285. Division II is the only division with schools in Alaska, Puerto Rico, and Canada. And Division I, student athletes graduate at a higher rate than the general student body year after year after year. Just to give you an idea. Part of that is because of the commitment that they put forth. People that are dedicated on the field tend to be dedicated in the classroom as well. So we'll go with 2 more questions. Riley, what's a typical day like for a female student athlete that plays soccer for you?
Okay, in season, depending on the day, we generally lift 1 to 2 days during the week. Depends what our game schedule looks like. If we have 1 game, we might be in the weight room twice. So usually the girls might start their morning by grabbing a snack and heading over to lifting. After that, they'll generally go to the CAF together to get lunch or breakfast. They'll go home, shower, head to their first class. The girls typically have 2 to 3 classes a day that span anywhere from being 50 minutes to some of the labs pushing closer to 2-3 hours a day.
Wait a minute, I didn't hear anybody like go, sweet! You only got 2 or 3 classes a day? Come on, Liverpool.
Yeah, you're barely in class. That's the biggest kind of misunderstanding people have. They think you're in the classroom from 8 to 3 like you are right now with high school. But at college, you're only in the classroom usually 3 hours a day. Depends if you have a lab or not. Most of the time, then you're dedicating 3 hours to homework. So in college, a lot of the fallback comes onto you with staying disciplined with schoolwork. But yeah, so they'll go to their class. Somewhere in between there, they'll get lunch, they'll nap. Everyone takes naps. So when everyone talks about there being no time and time management, it's a load of crap. Half of my athletes, like I said, they get at least 1 nap a day. Some of them get 2. Yeah. Don't stress. You'll be okay. Just as long as you're disciplined with your time.
You got 3 coaches over here that are going, I'm going to go play for her.
Everyone naps.
I can have a couple naps,
For 3 years, they all napped too. So I coach at Division I and Division II. Everyone naps at some point throughout the day. Don't let them fool you.
Sean's grumpy right now. I want a nap.
And then we tend to practice anywhere between 3:30. This past spring, with everything being absolutely insane, we had a few practices kick off at 7 p.m., which those were really late. We usually have practice starting at 3:30 or 5, and during season, they'll 90-minute training sessions usually. With us having 2 games a week and 4 practices, we don't need to be on the field longer than that. So we're done anywhere between 5 to 7. The girls usually have their homework done before they go to practice. So depending on how you time manage throughout the day, maybe if you only nap once and not 3 times, you can have a free evening after practice. The girls will usually get like an ice bath, some type of recovery. They'll hit dinner, and then they'll hang out with each other until they go to bed. I would like to think at 10 p.m., but I know that's not realistic.
Sean likes the naps. He's not too keen on the ice bath thing, though, just so you know.
No, ice baths, yeah. You either hate them or you love them.
If you are playing this weekend, could you go ahead and stand up? We got a lot of players here that are being looked at by a lot of coaches, okay? Some of you probably have heard Sean reference the Indiana-Marshall game. I wish he hadn't. But Todd Yeagley was out here all day yesterday, the head coach at Indiana, walking around checking kids out. And everybody thinks, oh, he just goes after MLS Next kids, or no. There's diamonds in the rough everywhere. There was a kid, Femi Hollinger Jensen, who years ago played ODP, was found out by Todd and played for the New England Revolution, played for Minnesota. He played probably about 8 or 9 years MLS. But he never played any of that DA or MLS Next stuff. So I want you to turn around and thank the people that brought you here. Because if they didn't bring you here, you wouldn't be able to showcase what you got. All right, I woke you back up. Go ahead, sit back down. I'm going to throw the last question to the 3 guys over there. You just saw a whole bunch of people. Come on, freshman. That's true? All right, go ahead. You know you're going through the kitchen. All right. I'm going to throw this to the 3 gentlemen over here, last one. All these kids just stood up, and they're playing ODP. I know a number of you, Brian, I know you got at least 2 ODP players coming in this class?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. How important is ODP in terms of player development for the 3 of you when you go out recruiting? What makes it kind of stand out? That's for all 3 of you too.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things about ODP is that it's ultimately like an initial choice that you make as a player to put yourself in a pressurized and ultimately uncomfortable environment, right? Because it would be super easy to just stay at your club team with your friends and all of the guys or girls that you know, or stay in your high school environment or your middle school, whatever it is, environment, with all the people that you know, and be comfortable and not have to get outside of that comfort zone a little bit. So when you go to ODP, you're making an initial choice to put yourself again in that highly pressurized and uncomfortable environment, which says to me that you have a certain mindset about you that is going to lead to some version of success down the road. So I like that right away. And then I think the next thing it says is that now you're going to be there, and you get selected or you don't get selected. But then once you go into that, you start to realize that you get humbled a little bit, right? You think you're the 6 on your club team, and that's the kind of the big fish in the small pond idea, and then you go into the larger ODP pond of players across the entire state, and it's like, well, maybe there's a 6 that's better than you, but now you have an opportunity. Well, I'm just a 6. That's all I do. I just play defensive midfield. Or do you adapt and try to do something else? Try to take your skill set to another place on the field where you can compete and be the best and get into that next level environment. And then over the course of the time, while you're grinding it out as the right back, you're learning from that 6 that got selected above you. And then now that's how you develop and that's how you grow as a player. So I think that's one of the super cool things about ODP. I think the other thing that's awesome about ODP is you get exposed to a different coach, a different way of doing things, and that's one of the things that I'm always telling the guys that I work with in ODP is like, hey, keep in mind my time with you is limited and my time with you is temporary. Nothing that I do is permanent. So come here with an open mindset and come here with an idea and understand that I am going to see the game differently than your club coach. I am going to see the game differently, in my case, than your high school coach. Okay? And that doesn't mean that I'm right and they're wrong, or that they're right and I'm wrong. It just means that we're different. See the game differently, right? And so it gives you an opportunity to be exposed to a new set of ideas. So those are just some of the things that I really enjoy about ODP, and I think it's an awesome, and I think to Coach's point, kind of talking about the academy or MLS Next or whatever we're calling that today. It's like an overlooked opportunity that you have to continue to develop yourself if the 10, 11 month club season is not for you, because it's certainly not for everybody.
All right, so if if my friend is 62, a little overweight, and they can play in pressure situations, as Brian said, so kind of like me trying to get in this polo today, I have a shot. I'm all good? All right. Who's got a question that they'd like to ask the panel? I don't know if you got eligibility left yet. I don't. Maybe we can. Are you 6 foot tall? I got it. All right, you can't play here. Okay, what's your name and what's your question?
All right, so I'm going to play off what you guys just talked about with MLS Next and recruiting, and so clubs versus academy clubs versus MLS next versus ODP. Realistically, when you're recruiting, are you going after Academy Club kids? You're going after ODP kids? Where do clubs rank with regards to your recruiting?
I think I'm going to jump out on that one, and I'm going to go back to my first statement about don't look at college soccer like Division I is inherently better than Division II or Division III, and I think it's the same thing in the club world. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, all they've done is change the badge that they put on the side of the jersey. Like, the same clubs are still developing the best players in the Midwest. Like, that's a fact. Soccers are still doing what Soccers do in Chicago. St. Louis Scott Gallagher is still doing what St. Louis Scott Gallagher does in St. Louis, right? And that's not going to change. And so, again, I would encourage you to stop looking at things like, this is better than that. No, it's like, what is going to fulfill your experience that you want? And that 10-month, 11-month academy-type season isn't for everybody. And for everything that you sacrifice in that 10 and 11-month season, I could put somebody up here that's going to make an argument about what you are losing on not participating in high school soccer and not being in that peer group and not having that opportunity to lead within your high school community and the intangible lessons that you're going to get in that environment. So, like, yeah, do they have a fancy badge on their jersey? Do they get some cool stuff when they go to tournaments and stuff like that? Do they tend to have an above average share of the nation's elite youth players? Yeah, sure they do. But every field I walk up to, it doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. Like, I can find guys that can ball at the level that I need them to. And like so many of us have said too, we're not just looking for the best player at any one position. That is like, it's like 10% of the recruiting process. And the remaining 90% is what kind of person are you? What kind of person are you? And how are you going to drive program culture forward from that standpoint?
Okay, we had another one over here.
Summer college camps. How much recruiting you put on that for overnights college camps? We get a lot of emails on that all the time. Just don't know if it's worth the time.
I think it depends on that again, every coach up here has a different recruiting strategy that they use. For us, they're big. Head coach at UIndy is John Higgins. He's at Louisville right now, University of Louisville right now, because it's an ID camp, and it's isolating players in that region all in one spot where he can get his eyes on them, and he's working the camp, so he actually gets to coach them. So for us, it's big. For us, it's big. I would say most of the guys on our roster from the States were at one of our ID camps at one point in time, or they were at an ID camp that we worked at one point in time, because getting to coach them also gets them to know you a little bit. And so for us, it's big. Again, I think it's individual universities are going to have a different approach. For us, it's a big deal for us. We like those. We like those for sure.
Yeah, I have a question that's a two-part. One of them is that you mentioned international students that you're bringing in athletes. What percentage of the international ones do you have on your roster right now? Is it 10%, 5%? And my other question is, if you have a player that's phenomenal and he's struggling a little bit, he's not at 3.5, does your schools provide any mentoring or any assistance to bring him where they need to be because of the issues they might have at home or things like that, etc.? But that character's there, the talent is there. Do you provide academic support for this kind of students?
Well, I guess I'll answer it since I was the international. So I don't know if the women's game is different, because quite honestly, women's athletes in the United States are phenomenal. Not that men aren't,
But they're not 6 foot.
but only a center back, coach.
Okay.
You got to listen to the details. It's about the details. It's about the details. Because we got a 5'8" central midfielder who is phenomenal, so it's only in certain positions. But to answer your question, about 50% of our roster, of our first team roster, is internationals. Okay, now you say wow, but University of Charleston, that won Division II tournament when we were able to have one back in 2019, 95% of their roster is internationals. If you look at Marshall, 95% of their roster is internationals. You look at IU, less than, do they even have an international player on IU right now?
3.
Maybe 3? So 3 of their 28. So again, it depends on the school. So we can't really, like Coach said, there's all these differences. Yeah, it depends on the school. The international recruiting is a little bit different, especially when it comes to grades and that sort of thing, because a lot of times the international recruit, for example, we have a Norwegian kid on our team. Well, he didn't finish high school till he was 19, and so he's already graduating from high school, and he's already a year older than every other kid that we could recruit here. I mean, we all know, especially for males, the difference between a 17 and 19-year-old, right? Now, to answer your question about the player that doesn't quite have the grades or whatever it is, this is the best answer to that question is, if that player is super talented, we'll bend that rule on the 3.5, right? I mean, that's obvious. At the end of the day, for the first time for most of you players, for the first time ever, you're going to play for a coach whose livelihood depends upon your ability to play the game. Okay?
That's just being recorded.
That's the truth. That's the truth. And so,
Adam, let me throw the second part of that to you. What does Indiana State offer as far as academic mentoring or help for your student athletes?
So we have what's called the AEC, the Academic Enrichment Center. So every freshman that comes in as a part of our program has a minimum 8 study hall hours that they will complete per week for their entire freshman campaign. They can graduate out of those per se after the end of their freshman year. We have a team minimum of a 3.3 GPA to get out of study hall. As I said, with the team GPA at 3.85, we don't really have a lot of those academic conversations. But within the AEC is a thing what's called priority registration. So the girls go in there and they'll register before the rest of the student body. So that way our advisors know when our training schedule is, when we're traveling for matches, and they do their best to minimize any and all conflicts. Freshman and sophomore year, that's very simple. Junior and senior year, we've got nursing majors and clinicals and a lot of science-driven professionals, pre-professionals, so it gets a little difficult, but we work around those things, and that's what's great about the AEC. It's also where any type of tutoring, any type of mentoring, any of those services that are required, they get through there. But to be honest, what I tell a lot of recruits that we talk to, most of the best tutors you're going to have are your teammates, just because they're so high achievers both on and off the field. Now, that's not to say as you get higher up in your anatomy and physiology and chemistry and those types of things, as you're getting into higher level courses, we may have to go to the academic side of campus to get some tutors. But we feel that the needs of our female student athletes in their AP 400 level course is just as important as a student athlete who needs help in, say, Bio 101. The needs of our high achievers are just as important as anyone else, and we make sure that their needs are met. And like I said, sometimes that's within the team through their teammates, and sometimes we'll go outside and find someone either within the athletic department or on the academic side of campus to make sure that they're set up for success.
Okay, Abs, go
The
ahead.
only thing I was going to add, to be a Division I program, you have to have an academic support program. It may not be housed separately from the institution. It may be tutors through the institution, mentors through the institution, but a lot of programs have that separate, but you have to have an academic support program. Ideally, we'd want everyone to be getting the 3.5 and 3.8 that everyone's getting at these schools down here, which is amazing, but not every student athlete's gonna get that. And here too, sorry, let's be fair to all the coaches here that their student athletes are getting 3.5s, 3.8s, it's amazing. But there are student athletes that have 2.1s, 2.2s, 2.3s. There is disability testing that schools can do and schools can pay for, and that will let them know what the needs are of a particular student athlete. So within our rules, we allow schools to do a lot to support the academic needs of student athletes, especially those that may not be as prepared coming in based on the school that they went to previously, or may have some sort of unique needs in terms of learning or disability. So,
Just going off of that, I would just say as a student athlete, you're going to have more safety nets as opposed to like just a regular student on campus. You're going to have, like they said, you're going to have your coach, academic advisors, and then your teammates. So it's harder for you to fail out than it is for just the average Joe Schmo on campus. Just,
Question from a player.
Question.
Go ahead, stand up.
Question for Coach Brian. So you mentioned that your team had a top 5 GPA. So I was just wondering how your students can balance out like academics and sports, especially for walk-on players, but also like what percentage of walk-on players would you say can make the team?
Okay, lots there. In terms of our roster, I always say next year we'll have 32 student athletes on the team, so anywhere from half to slightly more than half on a given year are either, a 50-50 split on some combination of athletic and academic aid, and then others are just on their institutional aid package only, and then they're paying the remaining dollar amount that it costs to go to school. So it tends to be about a 50-50 split or less or slightly more one way or the other, just depending on a given year. In terms of the balance of being a student athlete, like I love doing this with my student athletes at IUPUI, and I think they hate that I do this, but I will answer your question with a question. How do you balance being a student athlete right now?
Just time management.
Bingo.
Thank you. You said it in 2 words.
Well played.
Do we have a question from a young female? We haven't had any female athletes. Yes.
I'm just kind of curious, is there if students decide to take harder courses at college, will you maybe provide extra stuff for them than say someone who's taking a much easier course, or provide them with maybe a bit more flexibility since they might be taking something that's more challenging?
So if the student athlete wants to take a harder curriculum,
Yeah, exactly.
okay, will you give them a little bit of leeway in terms of their commitments to being a student athlete?
And how do you assess programs for that proactively?
Okay, Riley.
I would say it kind of depends on the coach. They're going to put it on you. I don't know very many coaches that are going to let you miss practice or games because you have to study for something. I would be shocked if I've ever met a coach like that. You can't miss a practice for a class though. Or you can't miss a class for a practice, sorry. I said that backwards.
No, you said what you really meant.
Yeah. Gotta be a practice. No, but yeah, so if you have a class that falls during a practice time, we can't make you, even when we were virtual this past semester, if our girls had a scheduled virtual class from 6 to 5 or 6 to 7 or whatever, and we had class or practice, they had to be in class, even if it was virtual, it was recorded and they could watch it later. They had to be at that class. And it's frustrating because we had practice at that time and they could watch it later, but they had to be there. But you will have to miss classes for games. Like I said, I don't know very many coaches that will allow you to miss a game for a class because every professor is mandated to work with you. They can't penalize you for missing a class because you have a game. So if they try to do that, then you obviously need to come to the professor or to us, or talk to the professor or your academic advisor, say, listen, this professor is giving me a hard time. They're, by law, they have to look at you if you miss a class because of a game. In regards to working with you, if you're in a harder class, we would recommend obviously working with your professor, tutors, things like that. The GPA stuff, at least for us, it's a hard GPA. If you fall below a 3.5 NR, you're on study hall, and it's tiered based on where you are. So if you're below a 3.5, you're on 2 hours a week. If you fall below a 3.0, it's 4 hours. If you fall below a 2.8, it's 6 hours.
And that's not punishment. That's
no,
support.
it's not. It's us trying to help you
Right.
manage your time more efficient. And again, if you fall below a 2.8, you're meeting up with us 2 hours a week, my GA usually, just so we can help you manage your schedule a little bit better. That way you're not, our goal is to get you off study hall. We want you to be able to manage it yourself. Again, it's not punishment, it's just, again, us trying to help you provide safety nets and manage your time better. But again, I don't know any coach that's going to let you miss a practice. I know some of you guys do that now with your club where you text your club coach, like, I got a big test tomorrow, I can't come to practice. That's not going to fly at college.
Sean, you were at the Division III level too, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything different there?
Yeah, I think there's a slightly different approach to the Division III level because it is much much more academic first, and the rules are set up that way by the NCAA that it has to be academic first. At the Division III level, there would be times where a player would miss a match if they had something academically that conflicted. I'll give you a great example. Very good friends with the coaches at Rose-Hulman. If you don't know what Rose-Hulman is, it's a top engineering school in the country. It's just over by Adam. And they don't train on Thursdays because they tend to test a lot at that college on Fridays. So that wouldn't be, I can tell you right now, at UND, we would never consider that when we made our practice schedule, right? Because we're kind of D2, they kind of say is life to balance because it's both, right? But at the Division III level, there is an emphasis on this comes first at the expense of your athletics, which some players love that, some players don't. I had plenty of players that came to me, play for me, that hated the fact that we had that policy. Because they were like, well, there's so-and-so, we got this big game or whatever, and that's just the way it was.
Okay, we're just at time to add on to your question too, Brian's university. Chris Johnson coaches there, and a lot of his female players that come in want to be nurses. And so when they get into their third year of nursing school and whatnot, I know that in the past, Chris has adjusted their entire team practice schedule. So they may go in the mornings, or they may go in the afternoons to help accommodate that, because they want the people and the student athletes to be students first than athletes, but we also need them at practice. I'm going to leave you with this. I've always told recruits and their parents that recruiting should be a three-step process. One, you should pick the school because of the curriculum, okay? Pick the school because they have the studies that you want. Two, go in and experience the lifestyle, because these are going to be your new friends. These will be your lifelong friends. You will forget your high school friends, trust me. But you want to get in and see what the culture's like around campus. Ask the players, what's coach really like? He just told my parents a whole bunch of stuff, but what's he really like, or what's she really like? And the third is the soccer, because the soccer is the only thing that can be taken away from you. The coach could recruit over you. You could have a catastrophic injury. You could have plateaued as a player, and your development just and you could fall out of interest with the game. Landon Donovan, it happened to him. He took a break. But that's the one thing you can't control. So, think of the first two. If the soccer's taken away from you, would you transfer? Because if you look to the person that you thanked for bringing you here today, that's probably another semester or two of financial assistance they're going to need to give you. Okay? So do your homework. Find that school that has what you want. Because even if you're lucky enough to go pro like I did, what are you laughing at? Okay, no, maybe I didn't play pro. Maybe I'm stretching the story a little bit. But even if you do go pro, the average pro career is 2.7 years. So that means before you even hit 25, what are you going to do for the next 50 years to provide for your family? You're going to fall back on your degree. Okay, so that's a huge commitment. If you would, put your right hand up in the air. Put your left hand up in the air. You don't trust me, do you? Give yourself a high five for being here today. And if we could get a little round of applause for the coaches up here. If you have any further questions, by NCAA standards, this event is now over. So you should be able to come up and talk to a coach. Am I right?
I'm not here in an NCAA capacity anymore.
Okay.
I'm a state coach, what they do.
If you wonder why some coaches aren't coming up and talking to you or saying, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you.
I'll leave the building.
They're not supposed to talk to you until the event is over. So that's why I just kind of said that. So thank you all for coming. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Humam Kassar. I am from Illinois and I play with the Illinois ODP. I like the fact that they talked more about the life of the players. I find a lot in these like other interviews and other meetings, let's say, that they often talk a lot about the academic side or the soccer side, but I find that they very rarely talk about the players and just how they live their life and every day.
My name is Gabe Smith and I am from Illinois ODP. After listening to these coaches talk, I took away a lot about the recruiting process, especially like that they look at the whole character of the player rather than just the athleticism, and they actually look more at grades and character outside and off the field.
I'm Peyton Luffelbein. I'm a graduate of 2023 and I'm from Kansas. I'm a representative of Kansas. I've been on ODP for 5 years and I've just loved the experience of ODP. My takeaway from the meeting I just had with the college coaches is that they really look at your characteristics and how you do like an overall player and how you play, and about your like the way you play, it all matters.